So if you don't understand what I mean when I refer to Plato's cave, for example, find out about Plato's cave. Because you're in one. Don't you want to know where you're at? Can't get to where we need to be unless we know where we're at. So we got to start with, where are we? Well, that's where my 6-box system comes into play. I've explained how the ultimate schematic can show us where we are, where we came from, how we got here, and how to get back to where we need to be. It's very simple. I've laid it out. I've got a special teaching tool to help you make sure you pass the first test, because it uses 3 stages of knowledge. And then I have a 3-step process to help each and every one of y'all prove this to yourself, because there's just too much confusion out there. Until you correct 5 main mistakes for several months, for most of you people over 40 or 50, you won't understand what I'm saying. Do that, and then you're going to understand what I'm saying. That yes, this is the ultimate solution. In other words, if you think you found the ultimate solution to solve problems and it has to do with correcting the government, you got to ask yourself this question. You got to ask yourself this question: does the solution to control the government solve the obesity crisis, or heart disease, or cancer, or diabetes? And the point here I'm saying, my friend, is if your solution doesn't solve all of these problems that are within our control, then it's not the ultimate solution. I've got the ultimate solution, and you can prove it to yourself. And the ultimate solution is to correct 5 main mistakes, especially the first one, because that's what changed everything. It's what put us where we are. And a lot of people say, oh, I don't believe in that. Well, you're a fool if you don't believe it. And there's a lot of people who don't want you to believe it. So be careful and think about why you believe it. If you study research, or if you study a lot of things, you're going to find a lot of different stories. And what I find is the ones that are entertaining in its own little way are usually contrived out of someone's imagination to take away our responsibility. So if you want to believe in this, and that belief means, hey, there's no fall of mankind, we didn't do anything wrong, we don't have to correct anything except this damn government, you haven't got out of Plato's cave if that's how you think. You've gone up a level, but you got to come all the way out. So we want to go up a level in Plato's cave and get out of the cave. And to do that, do the first of my 3-step process. And as everyone knows, when you guys do this, you're in for a treat. Hello, my name is John Rose, and in this video I would like to give what I believe to be the definitive answer to one of life's most perplexing questions. What is the meaning of life? First of all, in order to understand the meaning of life, we have to understand that we are in Plato's cave. Once we understand we are in Plato's cave, then we know that the only purpose we have in Plato's cave is to escape Plato's cave. We got to get out of Plato's cave. That's the only purpose we have once we're in the cave. And then to get out of the cave, we've got to satisfy 2 groups of needs. And when we do that, we'll become the best that we can be. And one of the benefits is that we're going to feel one with everything around us. And once we feel one with everything around us, then we'll know that there's only one way we can improve on the quality of our lives, and that is to make everything around us better. So that's the purpose of life once we get out of Plato's cave and we're playing in paradise, so to speak, where paradise is simply a place where we don't have any problems that are 100% within our control. So once we get out of Plato's cave and once we're in paradise, what we do, the thing we do that gives us meaning in life, and our meaning of life, will be to be the true guardians that we were meant to be on this planet. And we would make everything else around us better. So, what is the meaning of life? Well, I guess it depends on where you're at. When you're in Plato's cave, the only thing to do that's worth any meaning is to get out of the cave. Then, once you're out of the cave, it's a no-brainer. We know what to do. We feel one with everything. We make everything else better. And that's how we enrich our own lives. So, what is the meaning of life? Currently, we're in Plato's cave, so now the meaning is get out of Plato's cave. We got to escape Plato's cave. We got to satisfy 2 groups of needs. We got to become the best that we can be. And then we will turn around and make everything else the best that it can be. That's the meaning of life. So right now, first step, get the hell out of Plato's cave. How do we do it? Well, you can do the first of my 3-step process that I perfected. Remember, there's only one thing we have to do to get out of Plato's cave, and that is satisfy 2 groups of needs. Unfortunately, most of us are not willing and able to do that, which is why I added 2 preliminary steps to the only thing we have to do, thereby perfecting a 3-step process. The first step addresses the willingness issue on a temporary basis, so we can see what we're missing, and then be in a better position to take the second step, where we're going to end up correcting 5 main mistakes on a permanent basis. And then once we add these 5 main mistakes onto our list of mistakes to correct, we'll finally be able to take the third step, and that's where, once again, we simply satisfy these 2 groups of needs that are based on the law of cause and effect and the ripple effect. In effect, we have 2 anatomical limitations that we must respect. The first anatomical limitation has to do with what we were given at birth, and the second anatomical limitation has to do with what we've done to ourselves, society, and the environment. We've damaged ourselves, society, and the environment, and now we have to do damage control. We've got to work downstream to a degree, but only if we're also working upstream and correcting these 5 main mistakes that are in effect causing the vast majority of our problems. Now, I've gone into much depth into this subject. I have a video you can go to that is a seminar I gave on how to do the very first of my 3-step process. I created a 11-part playlist called The Ultimate Solution, where I go into more detail about all the pieces to the puzzle that I created. I call the Ultimate Schematic. I just started a playlist on the Ultimate Schematic. I'm not sure if I'm going to pursue that much more, but there is the original that I put out that I taped back in December, and even though I never planned on using it, it will work for now until I do something and update that. But nonetheless, it's still workable. You can take a look at a very special teaching tool I created that uses knowledge in a way that's never been seen before, so we can get out of Plato's cave. In effect, what we have is 2 maps in one. It's a 6-box system. The bottom half of this 6-box system is Plato's cave, and it's all about getting out of Plato's cave. The top part of my 6-box system is the hero's journey. By definition, a hero is a person who can solve a problem or problems that no one else can solve. And since most of our problems are self-inflicted, that means each and every one of us are the hero. So that's the hero's journey. And I go into more detail in my 11-part series I call The Ultimate Schematic. And you can click here to my playlist. And you can click here for The Ultimate Schematic. And click here for the first of my 3-step process. So what's the meaning of life? It's to get the hell out of Plato's cave and get back up there to the garden, so to speak. Paradise. A place where we don't have problems that are 100% within our control. Most of us don't know that most of our problems are 100% within our control. That's why we want to test an idea as time has come and do the first of my 3-step process. Why? Because within 1 week you have a light bulb moment. You realize that what I've been saying is true. And then within several months you'll have an aha moment, and that's where you come to the realization that everything we've been told about what we should do when we get sick and why we're sick and who to go to has all been wrong. Everything we've been told about how to get and stay healthy has been wrong. It's our belief system. That's why we're in Plato's cave. Plato's cave is simply a cave of ignorance. That's all Plato's cave is. Why has this one question puzzled mankind for so long? It's because of our belief system. There's something seriously wrong with this. And everything in our society of any significance has everything to do with our belief system. Because the things we think determine the things we do, and the things we do determine the things we got, or the things we get. And then it's the things we got that keep us where we're at. That's the problem with making mistakes. Sickness begets sickness. And we have to understand that life will never have any meaning as long as we don't get reconnected, which is what happens when we get out of Plato's cave. When you get out of Plato's cave, you get reconnected. And if we don't get reconnected, everything else is a distraction. And then if we can't reach the tipping point, if we can't get enough of us to do all of this, things will never change. If we don't change our mentality, things will never change. Because we have the wrong mentality. We compete for resources on an abundant planet when we should cooperate and share the abundance this planet has to offer. We prey systematically upon our own species. What is wrong with us? We have a dark side to our behavior. Why are we sick? It all has to do with our belief system. Come, get back here. Everything in our society of any significance has everything to do with our belief system and how it relates to our health and our sickness. And this is why we have a dark side to our behavior. It's why we have the wrong mentality. It all centers around what we believe and what we do, and then what we get keeps us where we're at. That's the catch-22 effect, you might say, of making these mistakes. We get caught in this horrible negative causal knowledge loop that guarantees history keeps repeating itself. Why is that? Because society attacks early when the individual is helpless. Long before we had the ability for critical thinking, we were already taught the same mistakes that our parents were taught. So that now every 7-year-old child knows how to guarantee history is going to repeat itself. That we'll still have war and crime and violence and heart disease and cancer and diabetes. Why? Because our problems begin in childhood. And we got to stop this form of child abuse. We got to stop teaching our children to live in the same way that creates all of these things. You are what you eat. You know you are. Why can't you extrapolate that one step further and saying this is why we suffer? Well, addictions, denial. I explain all that in the ultimate schematic, pieces 15 and 16, and then these strike twice, so they're also 51 and 52. Sounds boring, doesn't it? To some it's not going to be, but we don't need to understand any of that. All we have to do is simply test an idea as time has come. Do the first of my 3-step process, and you'll finally understand that life does have a meaning if we can get out of this cave of ignorance. Because life has no meaning in the cave. And the only thing we should do in the cave is get the hell out of the cave and then do the only thing we're supposed to do, satisfy 2 groups of needs. And I go into this in much detail in the seminar I gave. Click here, take you to the seminar. I go over all this in the ultimate solution. Click here for my playlist. And then click here for the ultimate schematic. And the only thing I can say with any certainty at this point is that for those of you guys who do this, you're in for a treat. Hello, my name is John Rose, and in this video I'd like to take a closer look at the Matrix, Plato's Cave, the 5 percenters, and our ship. And the easiest way I know to explain these 4 separate allegories is to use my special teaching tool, where I identified 281 of the most important pieces out of the millions of pieces that are within this special teaching tool. And you can click that or go down to the description box and you can see the ultimate schematic playlist and the ultimate solution playlist that explains most of those pieces. But what I want to do initially in this video is go over the first 3 pieces that I've identified and show you where those are in all 4 of these allegories. Now, the first 3 pieces to this special teaching tool, out of the 281 pieces, belong to 21 main problems of knowledge. And I got that because I got really philosophical when I found this really valuable knowledge a long time ago, and I started studying what philosophers said. And Socrates said that the problem of knowledge is the key to all of our problems, and I got real excited because I knew exactly what he meant. I knew it was ignorance, but I also knew there were reasons why we were ignorant, and I'd already been working on it by the time I found what Socrates said. So altogether I've come up with 21 main problems of knowledge, and the first 3 problems of knowledge are the ones that we're going to talk about and how it relates to these 4 allegories. So piece number 1 is the most important piece of the puzzle, and it's designated as in a circle with a dotted line inside the +8 box of knowledge, and you'll see that when you go to the ultimate schematic. And I'll be doing a uploading video soon that shows an improved diagram of my schematic where you can see one will have a dotted line around it, will be more obvious. But that's the knowledge we're missing. This is the reason why we have so many problems. And it's obvious that we don't have this knowledge, otherwise we wouldn't have so many problems. So that's piece number 1. It's the number 1 problem of knowledge. It's the knowledge we don't have. It's the knowledge we're missing. I like to call it lost knowledge or hidden knowledge, because our ancestors hid it in our traditions when they fell in love with it a long time ago. That's why it's hidden knowledge. So that's piece number 1. And then the number 1 reason why we can't find that knowledge is piece number 2, and that's false knowledge. And the problem with false knowledge is we have it in place of the knowledge we need, and we cannot learn anything when we think we already know. So number one reason why we can't find the knowledge we're missing is because we have false knowledge in its place. Pieces 1 and pieces number 2, and that's in my special teaching tool in the first stage of knowledge. My special teaching tool is constructed with 3 stages of knowledge. And this is what most people don't understand or know, because whenever we discuss something profound, very few people know how to identify all 3 pieces on the right path and on the wrong path. So many times 2 people are on the same path. One has 2 of the 3 pieces, one has 1 of the 3 pieces, and they're both right but both wrong because they don't recognize each other's pieces. So that's the purpose of my tools, to identify where all the pieces are. Now we're in the very first stage of knowledge, where knowledge is acquired. These are our thoughts. These are our beliefs. This is our belief system. These are the things we think. And that's made up, our belief system is made up of what's in the plus A box of knowledge and what's in the negative A box of false knowledge. And that's where piece number 2 is. So we have the right path on top and the wrong path on the bottom. We have knowledge, good applications, we satisfy our needs, and then we end up in paradise, where we have a place where we don't have any problems. Unlimited potential. But then if we have false knowledge in the first stage and we make mistakes, we end up with problems. And that's in the dark ages. So this 6-box system is really easy to understand. We're talking about pieces 1 and pieces number 2. Now there's a doorway in between those 2 boxes, and that's where we have 19 main obstacles, or 37 altogether. So identify 21 main problems of knowledge, but there's actually a total of 55 problems of knowledge altogether. And 53 of those are in 2 portals we have to go through, or 2 doorways. 37 in the first, 13 in the second. Because once we find the knowledge we're missing, then we have to apply and go through 1 more doorway into the second stage of knowledge, and that's where knowledge is applied. Those are our actions. That's the cause. Those are the things we do or have done to us. And so our lifestyle choices. So this is where cause enters into the picture. It's in the second stage of knowledge. So the problem we have is we start our journey off in life with piece number 2. We make mistakes, and that causes problems. And we don't know that, so we viciously repeat this horrible negative horizontal loop. And what we have to do is make a transformative move, go through that first doorway, and find the knowledge we need. That's piece number 1. And the problem is there are 19 obstacles inside that doorway, or 37 altogether. The number 1 obstacle would be the number 1 source of false knowledge, because there are 12 sources of false knowledge and 7 wilderness factors. Those are 19 obstacles, or 19 reasons why we don't know with these 2 forms of ignorance. And the number 1 source for false knowledge is piece number 3. And that's the dark side of our behavior, or in our case, or especially in our case, we have the darkest of the dark side of our behavior, or the worst of us, or the sickest of us, who are then taking advantage of the fact that we are sick and they control us. So these are pieces 1, 2, and 3. Now let's take a look at how they are in the matrix, and Plato's cave, and the 5 percenters, and in our ship. And now when we first go to the matrix, what we have is piece number 1. That is getting outside of the matrix. Piece number 2 is the matrix. That's the false knowledge. There's the analogy there. And what we have to do to get out of the matrix is take the red pill. Well, we got to go through that doorway, and the easiest way to deal with all 37 obstacles is to test an idea as time has come that's up there, and that's the first of my 3-step process. You see? So that's the red pill. If you want to get out of the matrix, you want to take the red pill, do the first of my 3-step process. Look down below in the description box. You can get out of the matrix. What we're missing is the knowledge that we don't have, and the problem is we can't understand it because we have too many references that support what we believe and what we do and what we get. So we need a brand new reference. That's why we got to do something on a temporary basis, the first of my 3-step process, so you can see what you're missing. That's the red pill. How do you get out of the matrix? It's simple. You got to take the red pill. Now, what else do we have in the matrix? We have piece number 3. Well, here we have the intellectually superior machines, and then we have the super powerful computer programs. All these Agent Smiths. That's piece number 3. And now that's what we have in the very first of these 4 allegories. So pieces 1, 2, and 3 are reflected in what many people believe is almost what's the word I'm looking for? I can't find the word, but you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, so that's the first one. The second one is where we have Plato's cave, and believe it or not, that's where these brothers got their idea from. Is the Plato's cave. So when we look at Plato's cave, piece number 1 is getting out of the cave. And remember, once we get out of the cave, we go back down into the cave. And what do we deal with? This is where we have piece number 2 and piece number 3. Piece number 2 is in the cave. We have a bunch of ignorant people that when you tell them to look back into the light, to become enlightened, they scream at you and say, why are you telling me to look into the light? It hurts my eyes. The truth hurts. Don't tell me I'm the enemy. I got to change what I love to do. But life is an illusion, my friend. That's the whole point of all of these allegories. Life is an illusion. We're in the matrix. We're in Plato's cave, a cave of ignorance. When someone comes out of the cave, this is like Morpheus got out of the cave, then he found Neo. Now what happened when Neo was in there? He was attacked by the police. The police are the Progerian class. Again, this ties into piece number 3. This is the dark side of our behavior. And what the dark side of our behavior does is it controls everything. It controls the government, the judicial systems, the police force, educational systems, the priesthood. They control every major sector of human endeavor so they can control what we think, and they brainwash us in tradition they brainwash us and trick us into believing that this is the reality. And it's an illusion. It's all an illusion. So that's Plato's cave. Now we have the 5%ers. Now this is a group of Muslims that tie back to the 2 Muhammads that came up with 122 questions and answers. And when one of the questions came up is, well, who are the 5%? Well, those are the righteous teachers. Those are the ones who know or understand the law of cause and effect. You see, according to them, 85% of us don't understand the law of cause and effect, and we don't get it. Well, so you can see the flaw in their thinking, because they pointed out we found the 2nd stage and the 3rd stage, but what they can't seem to point to, the piece that they're missing in their story to make it complete, is the 1st stage of knowledge. And that's the knowledge of how to live. Now, when you look at Islam, it's supposed to be not a religion, it's supposed to be a way of life. And when you look at what they say diet-wise, they're pretty much on track, but then they still allow the weak to do something they shouldn't do, and then they use that as an excuse to do it. So this is quite a dilemma we're in when people rely on books that know that if they tell the truth, there's too many people who are weak and they can't handle it. So their solution is, well, we won't put it in there. But we should still have it as a footnote or something, as something to aim at. So the 5%ers, we've got piece number 1 is understanding the law of cause and effect. Then we have piece number 2, that's the false knowledge. That's the 85% of people who don't understand the law of cause and effect. And then for them, the 10%ers, those are the privileged, those are the ones that were part of the ruling class. And actually the ruling class was a smaller percentage of those. But nonetheless, they try to designate that 10% as piece number 3. Or at least that's where piece number 3 is hiding amongst that top 10%. Because not everybody's in the top 10% is necessarily part of the ruling elite who are using money as a tool to control us. So one of the things we have to do to get out of this mess is for us all to get reconnected, of course. But then we gotta deal with this damage control, and we'll get to that in a moment. But next I want to go to our ship. Now this is a really interesting allegory. And their allegory was that life is a ship and we're headed to an iceberg. And most of the people are in the ship, and most of them are oblivious that they're even on a ship, and that the ship has a purpose or it has a direction, and let alone it's heading for an iceberg and for destruction. And then you have people on the outside of the ship that are watching everything. These are the philosophers, these are the trim tabs of society. They're the ones that are realizing, my God, there's a lot of people who don't know what's going on, and God, there are several people running the ship. These people don't know what they're doing. They're just cogs in the wheel, working for these people, doing their bidding, not knowing that what they're doing is steering the ship in the wrong direction. But then you got the ones that are outside the ship that actually think the ship belongs to them, and they're the ones that are controlling the rudders on the ship. So they're like the bad rudders on the ship. So in a way, the 5%ers are like the good rudders. And it's interesting because even in the Muslim religion, they're considered the extremists. Well, this is how the people who rule the world work. They know how we react, and they appeal to our emotions instead of our intellect. So what they do in this particular case is that they, how do I want to say this again? They label the good rudders extremists. And see, most people don't know who rule in the world, and they don't know about the bad rudders. So when everybody thinks of a rudder, they think of extremists. And again, it's all a distraction. It's just a way for us to have a knee-jerk reaction saying, oh, they're just extremists, don't listen to them. And yet they're the good rudder. And then you got the bad rudders, and you got the people who control the rudder. But the beauty about all of these stories that doesn't seem to get told well enough is that the real way to get this ship going in the other direction is not to deal with the people who think the ship belongs to them and get to the people who know how to run the ship and to get them to get the ship in the right direction, unless that is where what needs to be done, which would be to give the knowledge to the people in the ship so they can change. You see, there's only one way to keep the ship from hitting the iceberg, and that is for everybody in the ship to change. And I went over this before when I talked about everyone being in a bell, and we can't cut the edges of the bell off, we got to change the bell. Same thing with the ship. We got to change the condition of the ship. It's the condition of the ship, and the reason why the ship is in such bad shape is because we can think of the ship as our cells, and then our cells are floating in a sewage system. And it only makes sense that if our cells are floating in a sewage system, which by the way they are, that we keep that sewage system clean. And guess what happens when it's not clean? We've got lots of problems. And look around, my friends. Look at you. Every time you have a cold or a flu, that means your cells are floating in a filthy sewage system. Your cells are floating in shit, literally. You see, our body's nothing but a bunch of cells and two fluids. One fluid brings in the cell, or brings in the food, and the other fluid is the sewage system the cells poop into. And then that's supposed to be taken out the body. But our body stops working efficiently because we're not living the right way. We damage organs that are supposed to keep the system clean. Now the system backs up, and think of it no different as a toilet in the bathroom in your house. If you have waste matter, it's got to go out somewhere. We go into the toilet, it's supposed to go somewhere. Well, it goes into the sewage system. Well, let's say the sewage system backs up. What happens when the sewage system backs up? Backs up back into the bathroom, and if it backs up enough, it goes into the other cells. Well, guess what's happening to us? We do the same thing. And this is the reason why disease is a mystery to our so-called experts. They're not experts, they're misdirected by piece number 3. This is, again, if you're going to tell an allegory to get us out of this cave, you got to understand really what the pieces are doing and the best way to deal with them. The best way to deal with these pieces is to realize they're a reflection of us. We got to change the ship. The bell's got to change. You play a role when it comes to getting our ship to keep from hitting this iceberg. So go down below, look at my ultimate solution playlist and my ultimate schematic playlist, but most importantly, do the first of my 3-step process. And before you do that, to get really pumped up, listen to the Dr. Roby interview. He was being interviewed by these 2 women when he was on day 21 of my program. I was coaching him, and this man, you got to listen to the enthusiasm in this man's voice and how many things happened to him and how he's influenced everyone around him, and it happened with them too. If that doesn't get you motivated, you got to realize we all play a role. If you want purpose in your life, this is it. This is how you become a hero. We all love heroes. Did you know you could be a hero? How? Me? It's simple. The definition of a hero, someone can solve a problem no one else can solve. Well, guess what? Most of your problems are self-inflicted. What does that make you? The hero, don't you see? That's why every culture on this planet talks about the hero's journey. It's the most common story that's been passed on generation to generation, because we're all in search to get back to that golden age where we didn't have so many problems. It's not complicated. We're not satisfying our needs. We're getting disconnected. If everybody inside the ship got reconnected, what would happen? We wouldn't be floating in shit. We'd be floating in a really clean sewage system that was extremely receptive to anything we had coming, and it was out and gone. That's how we're designed. We're filthy creatures. And I can prove it to you. Do the first of my 3-step process. When you do, within days or about a week or so, you'll have a light bulb moment. And that's because for most of y'all, nothing's going in solid, but something's coming out solid. And for me, it took me 3 months to stop seeing stuff come out of me. I have a 20-pound cesspool in me. I've coached thousands of people. Very few don't have things coming out of them. And even if you don't, it's still such a positive experience in every way, because you're also going to be bumping up those biophotons, which I lovingly talk about, because this is the piece of the puzzle we're missing. If you want to label all of our biomarkers, the only one that matters should be our biophoton level. If I could rule the world with an iron fist, I'd have one law and one law only. Everyone had to have a minimal biophoton level. And we couldn't feed the next generation in a way that would create the hell we have now. We got to put it at the end now. That should be law number one. As of a certain year, no child will ever let their biophoton levels go down where they're supposed to be, like every other living system on this planet strives to accomplish. Why can't we do that? Society attacks early when the individual is helpless. All of our problems begin in childhood. Every little child has already been taught the same mistakes that were taught to us and our parents and their parents for 3,000 generations. It's time to put an end to this cycle. And it's not going to happen unless we get enough of you guys out there to test an idea as time has come, so you can become the best that you can be. Why don't you want to do that? If you've already done it, you know what I'm talking about. And I know it's discouraging when you try to tell people, because you think you get a better batting average. And it's really disheartening when you're all excited and you go share this with somebody and you can tell they don't want to talk about changing what goes in here. Addictions, denial, powerful obstacles, and the easiest way to deal with all of them is the decision. The hardest part is the decision. So make the decision right now. Go down there, look at my link. It's about a 2-hour seminar. I explain how to do this. It's simple. You're going to love it. I've done it 1,200 days in the last 24 years, and I love it. It's the most exciting thing I've ever done, and it transforms everybody's lives I've ever done. So when you do it, you're in for a treat. Hello, my name is John Rose, and in this video, I'd like to take a closer look at why we eat what we eat. Think about it. Why do we eat what we eat? Do we eat it because we like it? Do we eat it because that's what we're made out of? Do we eat it because we crave what we're made out of? Do we eat it because that's what we ate in childhood? Do we eat it because we just saw a commercial and it looked appealing and now we want to eat it? Why do we eat what we eat? Do we eat it because other people want us to eat it? Is food a weapon system? Yes. All of our needs are weapon systems. Our 12 essential needs and our 2 additional temporary needs. These subsequent needs can be used against us. There's 10 subsequent needs, 6 of which are also problems of knowledge because they can be used against us. And a lot of people, when they have a problem, let's say their son gets autism, and they start realizing the mercury connection, the obvious mercury connection, and just look at videos of what mercury does and look at what this is, and it's so obvious it's pathetic. But once you wake up to that, you start realizing the scam the whole medical system is, and then you see the connection with the government, and then you see these as problems and you want to fix them. Good for you. We need to fix them. But what happens when we do this is all we've done is we've gone up one level in Plato's cave. And we realize there's a fox guarding the hen house, and now all of our attention is focused on that fox. Or maybe even the wolves that are controlling the foxes. You may dig deeper and deeper and deeper, and you realize, oh my God, let's learn more about all of this. And what we have to understand is we don't want to put too much attention on that. In fact, I even label that as piece 8.8 in a special teaching tool I created. And you can look down below in the description box, and I'll link right to that specific piece, where we use the wrong approach when we focus too much attention on this piece of the puzzle. We have to focus on it. That's part of what we do in addition to solving the main thing we have to do. You see, life is like a river. We're downstream. That's where we are now. And if we don't like where we are now, we got to go upstream and look at what we're doing. And if we go upstream one more time, we're looking at what we're thinking. And this is what we're not doing. So, food is a weapon system. Just like the government is a weapon system. And the media is a weapon system. And our educational system is a weapon system. Even religion and spirituality has been used against us. It's real easy for these sick psychopaths who control everything to manipulate things because they own everything. They've been in charge of education and the priesthood for over 3,000 years. And there's a lot of theories out there as far as, well, what's behind it and everything. And a lot of those theories actually take away our responsibility. So question anything that actually takes away your responsibility where you don't realize the role you play in all of this. And remember, there are 2 main obstacles. One are the people that are the fox guarding the hen house and the wolves behind them. We've gone up a level, we go, oh my God, look what medicine is doing to us, look what the government is doing to us, look what the media is doing to us. We got to correct those problems or solve those problems. But what they don't understand is what created all of those. If there's one thing that created all of those, then can't we stop doing that, and then those problems will go away. Exactly. That's why we got to go upstream. In addition to doing the downstream work, think of it this way. Let's say you're walking down the river walk one day, and you see someone in the river, and you go, oh my God, you jump in the river, and you pull them out. You save their life. It goes, oh, I couldn't swim. I would have drowned. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So you walk by, you do your morning walk again down the river way. Next thing you know, you see two people in the river. And you go in there, and you jump in, and you pull them out, and they go, wow, neither one of us knew how to swim. We were both going to drown. The next day, you only see one person down in there, but they've already, looks like they drowned, so you run in there, you jump in the river, you pull them out, you resuscitate them. And you bring them back to life. You go, wow, isn't that something? And then the next day, you go down, you see two people floating down this time. And one's passed out, and you can tell the other one doesn't know how to swim, so you jump in, you grab them both, you pull them out, and the other guy helps you resuscitate the other guy. And you realize, oh my God, I should start coming down here with more of my friends in case there's more people in there. And sure enough, that's what happens. So every day he's going down there with crowds of people, and there's crowds of people in the river. And then the next thing you know, they said, we're wasting too much time. If we can't resuscitate them, take them down to the clinic. Let's build a clinic down by the river. And you see, this is what we're doing. These are all downstream solutions. And yeah, if there are too many people drowning, we got to build a clinic where it's close, and we've got to do all of that. But what we need to do is go upstream, find out why the people are falling in the river. Why are we in this cave of ignorance where some people come up a level and they think they're out of the cave? Because they don't want to admit that it's what they're doing that put us in the cave. Most of us are doing things that we think are okay, but they're not okay, my friends. We have not learned how to live. And when it comes to trying to get people to learn how to live, there are two obstacles. One are the rulers and the other are the ruled. The ignorant masses. So if you really want to solve your problem, if your son has autism and you got sick and you see how the system works, and if you don't want to figure out why it all happened, then you're a fool. You got to be a why man. Go all the way upstream. Look at our belief system. Question everything that takes away your responsibility. I've done a whole series in this. I've only just begun. I already got 19 videos on my belief system series where I examine a lot of false beliefs that are taking away our responsibility. And the biggest false belief has to do with making the very first mistake. In fact, our false belief relative to this mistake is where we actually call the biggest mistake we ever made, instead of it being a sin, which means a mistake, we call it an art. It's an art. The people who do this the best, it's an art. Oh, they're the greatest. That's how addicted we are in the mistake we're making. Remember what Plato said. Whatever deceives men seems to produce a magical enchantment. The very first mistake we made destroyed a nutrient that feeds one of our senses, that changed our whole mentality, but it also created something we never had before. And I did a whole, not whole series, but I did 2 videos on this. The first one, my audio tape recorder went out when the idea came to me, and I just sat down on the ground and I got to start recording what I'm thinking because I don't want to forget any of this stuff. And it's what I call the hunger pain. Is that what I called it? The hunger spell. That's what it is. I hadn't thought about it in a while. The hunger spell. We're under a spell. Whatever deceives men seems to produce a magical enchantment. We are in love and addicted to the things that have put us in the hell we're in. And most people, when you even bring up the subject, they shut off their frontal lobe, and we've proven that scientifically, how that works. How do we go to denial? Why do we go to denial? Well, we got to protect these pleasures, and we want to avoid these unwanted aspects of ourselves. That's why a lot of people, when you try to wake them up about what's going on, they don't want to know there's psychopaths running the world. That's why they shut off their frontal lobe. And think about it. How many times have you had discussions with people, and once you said a certain word or talked about a certain subject, what happened? You can actually, if you think back on it, you can just see their brain shut off. Pay attention now, and you go, yep, I see that brain shutting off. I do it all the time. In fact, when I first learned this study, I reflected back on all the conversations I had with people, and I go, God, I can remember there was a special look I kept seeing in people. Now I understand what was going on. That's why in my first videos I uploaded, called The Ultimate Solution, I'm very vague about what the piece numbers are, because if we can tell a story in a parable format, then people won't shut off their frontal lobe. If I can tell you it all started with piece 95, but you don't know what it is, you don't have an emotional attachment to it, but you can see that if that's true where it's at, that it's going to cause problems. Why? Because piece 95 is in the mistake box. It's in the second stage of knowledge, on the wrong path. You have to understand 3 stages of knowledge if you want to pass 2 tests to use logic. This is real simple. If we want to use logic to solve a problem, there's 2 tests we have to pass. In order to pass the first test, you have to understand 3 stages of knowledge. I never read this anywhere. It came out of my brain by creating this tool to help explain everything. And in my attempt to explain what it was, I go, oh, there's 3 main events on 2 event horizons, or there's 3 stages of knowledge, where knowledge is acquired and applied and manifested. We've got thoughts and beliefs. Whoops, we've got thoughts and actions and reactions. Beliefs, causes, effects. Belief system, lifestyle choices, feedback system. The things we think that are in the first stage of knowledge, the things we do or have done to us in the second stage of knowledge, and then the things we get in the third stage of knowledge. You have to understand 3 stages of knowledge in order to pass one test, because that test in logic has to do with the structure of the argument. The structure is like the railroad tracks, and the specifics, the details, the contents would be the train. The train's complicated. Don't start looking at logical fallacies, looking for logical fallacies in the trains or in the contents or the details or the specifics. Look at the track first. Which way is it going? It's always one direction. Always one direction. That's why I have these 2 sequential ordered pairs in my special teaching tool. Because one comes before the other. Sequence cannot be reversed. This is how we figure out whether or not we're being tricked and fooled. This is how the darkest of the dark side of our behavior tricks us. We're very easy to trick, because most of us don't know there's 3 stages of knowledge. And since they own and control everything, they can make us believe in anything. So all they do is they try, well, actually there's 3 ways to screw up the law of cause and effect. And look down below, and I did a video on this. And that's what we have to understand, that most people don't realize where we put our experts. They put our experts in one of the 3 ways we screw up the law of cause and effect, in between the cause and then the effect. They don't let the effect manifest. And how they do that is with black magic, poisons that don't allow the body to communicate. It's an illusion. That's all it is. So once you see this piece of the puzzle, you realize how important our health is. And that's, in fact, everything in our society revolves around this fact, that it has everything to do with our health or our lack of health. And that's how the people who are in charge have to stay in charge. The status quo can only remain the status quo as long as we don't know how to live and get healthy on them, because we can't be controlled if we're healthy. So how do you solve all these problems when you go up a level in Plato's cave and you see the government and you see the media and you see this one group controlling everything and owning everything and being a big cog in the wheel that's making this all happen, not knowing for sure who's behind the curtain. There's a lot of layers, and who cares? We focus too much attention on the fox or the wolves or the ETs or whoever. We lose sight on what we have to do, number one, to even put up a battle against this. And that is to become the best that we can be. I had a conversation recently with a guy, and he's saying, oh, we don't want to be distracted by looking at the individual. Oh, we got to look at this. No, you're being distracted, my friend. You only gone up one level in Plato's cave. You don't know why you're in the damn cave. And you can get out of the cave and then realize, yeah, I see what I was at, and yeah, that's part of what we got to do, isn't it? Thank God there's people like you out there that are wanting to work downstream, but if you don't go upstream and find out how to live, nothing's going to change. That's what we have to understand, my friends. 2 problems: the rulers and the ignorant masses. Ignorant masses don't know how to live. Hardest thing to get people to understand. So what I've done is I realize how difficult this is. I realize most people don't know it. They lack the ability, they lack the knowledge. But more importantly is they just don't have the desire to do something that promises a pig in the poke. I don't know, is that really true? Could it really do all of that? Think about it. If it only accomplishes 10% of what it says it can do, you'd be a fool not to do it. That's how I felt when I first found this knowledge. But I already made one change in my life relative to what I ate, and I saw an improvement, so I was a lot more receptive to it. But once again, I understand what people are up against. I know how hard it is. And that's why I added another step as a preliminary step to solving these problems. We got to address the ability issue, but more importantly, we got to address the willingness issue. And that's where my first step comes into play. Now what you want to do, if this is brand new to you, go down to the description box below and you'll see a seminar I linked to doing the first of my 3-step process. 2-hour seminar, do this program. You'll have a brand new reference. You'll realize that what I've been saying is true, and you can't understand it until you do it. And then once you realize how it affects you, you realize everybody's got to feel this way if we really want to get out of this hole we're in. Otherwise, we're like a bunch of crabs, and we keep pulling the people down back into the hole. So a lot of people mean really well. They want to tell their message that yes, there's a fox guard in the hen house, but and if we just get 3% of the population, we can control it. Great, let's do that. Good job. But don't forget, you got to go upstream. Find out how to live. You're not living the right way, I guarantee it. If you were, you'd know what I was talking about. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you're not living the right way. And again, it's hard to live the right way, so what do? You do something on a temporary basis. Again, that's where the first of my 3-step process comes into play. So again, go down to the description box and you'll see a link to my seminar. But first, to really motivate you, watch or listen to the Dr. Roba interview. He was on the radio being interviewed by these 2 women. And I was coaching him at the time. He was on the 3rd week of my program. And you got to hear this man talk. If that doesn't convince you to try this, I don't know what else will. Because he's living proof of how you start to feel when you do this. And then I have an 11-part series that explains all 281 pieces. If you want detailed information, I got it. I know that people are different. In fact, of all the things I've learned to be a better educator, I learned it from the first guy who turned me on to this whole concept of how to eat the right way. And he also taught me this personality test that's based on quantum physics. And I realized that different personalities go from point A to point B differently. Those who have a lot of physical energy and do things quickly usually go from the specific to the specific. If they're in a hurry, no waste of time, boom, boom. Then you got the type of people who are really friendly. They go from the specific to the general. They generalize things. And then the opposite of these people who are friendly are the people who are more into analyzing things. And with these people, they don't go from the specific to the general, it's just the opposite. They go from the general to the specific. But then you've got those who have a lot of mental energy and they do things creatively. And they go from the specific to the general to the specific. And one of the best things I learned was this test because it confirmed my personality, which most people usually get a pretty good idea of by the time they're 25 or so. But what it helped me understand are the different personalities. I am a triple blue, which means that I like going from the specific to the general to the specific, which has helped me look at the big picture because my personality means how willing am I to do it. Our performance equals willingness times ableness. The more willing and able we are, the better we'll do, right? Willingness is a big factor. So my personality likes to do that. In fact, being a triple blue pretty much describes me to a T. I am a philosopher. I sit all day in my ivory tower trying to figure out how to help people understand the big picture and that there's more than one thing we have to do. I'm not denying that we have to do what they're saying, but they never can accept their own responsibility because they don't know what they're missing. That's why I got the first of my 3-step process. So I told you a lot about myself right now. In my very top graph, which is my like-to graph according to personality, I'm blue-yellow. And blue-yellows make the best teachers because blue is my highest color and I like knowledge, and then yellows want to talk about it. So I've got the perfect personality to be a teacher. I sure didn't think that's what I was going to do as I started off in life. But once I found this knowledge 26 years ago, I realized why I was given a gift, and that was to be able to see how things interconnect. I have what I read in an article by Mike Adams one time, gifted pattern assimilator. I can see a lot of different things and connect them in ways I guess a lot of people don't see, but to me it's just how my brain works. And again, I found this knowledge, and I knew I had the passion to share it. That's why I bounce out of bed every morning excited about everything I'm going to do every day. I've got more video ideas. I can't even catch up with all the ideas I'm thinking right now on what I want to share with you guys that I've only just begun. And I know that, since I'm kind of new back into this, only been doing it for about a year, I'm realizing my potential problems doing this on YouTube. So I like feedback from you guys that have more experience doing this, that have been doing it more. And that is, you've got followers and subscribers, and I pile drive everything so much, I'm sure they're going to get tired of hearing the same thing over and over again. It's like, can this guy say something different? But then I realized too that if I finally put one out there that gets a bigger audience, a lot of people are going to be brand new to me, and then they don't know everything. And it's like, okay, how much do I talk about this and how much do I talk about this to make sure they understand it? Well, hopefully, if these people will have a genuine interest, they'll do what I always do. When I see someone commenting on me, I go to their channel and I look at what they think and what they've posted to get a better idea of where they're at, to see what's the best way to have a conversation with them. And I find that a lot of people have certain personalities that you can't communicate on the internet. I tried to get this guy, call me, let's not communicate here. I know where this is going, and sure enough, it went exactly where I knew it would. Not that I prophesized it and created it because I knew it would, but I just know personalities. I've been doing this on the internet for quite a while, and I know how personalities clash, just based on this personality test I've taken. And then, of course, 93% of communication is nonverbal, so trying to communicate on the internet is really hard. The anonymity of it allows people to be absolute idiots and assholes. And then people come off that way, and they really don't mean it. I don't express myself as well in written language as I do verbally. So I know I don't come off the way I want to, but I can't express myself as well as I perhaps need to. But I've been focusing on a special way of presenting my information. I studied the fog index. I understand that you don't want to keep doing things, saying something different each time, unless you're pile driving something, which I love to do. I want to use the same word over and over and over. I want to keep the word simple. I want to keep the. I want to try to write on a level that eliminates all the extra adverbs and adjectives that add to the fog index, to the length of the sentence, that will then explain really where I'm coming from. So I'm not used to writing with all the explicitives. I try to eliminate that as much as I can. I try to write to a third grade level using the fog index. The Bible and newspapers are written at about an 8th grade level. When you enter into a contract, especially insurance contract, it's like at a 26th grade level, which means that the sentences are really long. There's clauses within clauses, so by the time they finally tell you what the whole sentence is all about, you're not really sure which of the clauses above apply to what they're talking about. It's by design to confuse you and take advantage of you. In fact, I won't enter into a contract that has a fog index that's that high. I said, don't insult me. You know this fog index, this contract was written at a high fog index to screw somebody, and if you can't write it with a simple fog index, I don't want to even do business with you. So make it simple so that it's understood. Anyway, part of what I want to do to help this community is realize why there's so much conflict on the internet. The personalities explain why people come off differently. And when it comes to personalities, usually what happens is we don't like someone because they're not obeying our rules. The high friendly person, for example, says, what's this guy doing? I would never do that. Well, those are your rules because that's what you think is important in life, being friendly. Other people don't see that as the most important thing to focus on. They can't focus on everything. If they do, it's just mild all the way and there's nothing one way or the other. But otherwise, most of us usually focus on 2 of these 4 possible characteristics. And when that happens, we actually form 3 pairs of polar opposites, where we have extroverts and introverts, we have convergence and divergence, and we have individualists and conformists. And then, because there are opposites, the divergent personality is going to conflict with the convergent personality. And I know, because I'm a divergent personality. In my top graph, I'm blue-yellow. So when I encounter someone red-green, I understand them, but they don't understand me. And there's a lot of conflict when that occurs, because I'm not obeying their rules. Well, wait a second, you're not obeying mine. We're 6 blind men, and there's this elephant. We have limited perspectives. So, I've been rambling on this video, making it a lot longer than I meant it to be. But my message is very profound. And if you don't understand what I say anytime you watch a video, you have to watch it more than once. You got to dig a little bit deeper. It's worth looking into because I've got a very profound message that most people don't know. Again, the masses are ignorant. And think about it this way. If I say something and you don't know what I mean, why you even continue onward? I mean, what's wrong with you? Why would you not do that? Because people don't really have learning disabilities. They just lack the vocabulary. So if you don't understand what I mean when I refer to Plato's cave, for example, find out about Plato's cave. Because you're in one. Don't you want to know where you're at? Can't get to where we need to be unless we know where we're at. So we got to start with, where are we? Well, that's where my 6-box system comes into play. I've explained how the ultimate schematic can show us where we are, where we came from, how we got here, and how to get back to where we need to be. It's very simple. I've laid it out. I've got a special teaching tool to help you make sure you pass the first test. because it uses 3 stages of knowledge. And then I have a 3-step process to help each and every one of y'all prove this to yourself, because there's just too much confusion out there. Until you correct 5 main mistakes for several months, for most of you people over 40 or 50, you won't understand what I'm saying. Do that, and then you're going to understand what I'm saying. That yes, this is the ultimate solution. In other words, if you think you found the ultimate solution to solve problems and it has to do with correcting the government, you got to ask yourself this question. You got to ask yourself this question: does the solution to control the government solve the obesity crisis, or heart disease, or cancer, or diabetes? And the point here I'm saying, my friend, is if your solution doesn't solve all of these problems that are within our control, then it's not the ultimate solution. I've got the ultimate solution, and you can prove it to yourself. And the ultimate solution is to correct 5 main mistakes, especially the first one, because that's what changed everything. It's what put us where we are. And a lot of people say, oh, I don't believe in that. Well, you're a fool if you don't believe it. And there's a lot of people who don't want you to believe it. So be careful and think about why you believe it. If you study research, or if you study a lot of things, you're going to find a lot of different stories. And what I find is the ones that are entertaining in its own little way are usually contrived out of someone's imagination to take away our responsibility. So if you want to believe in this, and that belief means, hey, there's no fall of mankind, we didn't do anything wrong, we don't have to correct anything except this damn government, you haven't got out of Plato's cave if that's how you think. You've gone up a level, but you got to come all the way out. So we want to go up a level in Plato's cave and get out of the cave. And to do that, do the first of my 3-step process. And as everyone knows, when you guys do this, you're in for a treat. Hello, my name is John Rose, and in this video I'd like to take a closer look at the many levels in Plato's cave. And for those who are not familiar with Plato's cave, it's basically a cave of ignorance where most of us don't know we don't know. Now, I did a video a while back. I'll put a link down below, and it's one of my favorite videos. I wish more people would watch this. I call it Escaping the Matrix of Evil. It's where I go into detail about how there are 4 main stories that talk about the first 3 main pieces in my puzzle, or my schematic. The first 3 out of 281 pieces I've identified. And there are also 3 of the 21 main problems of knowledge I've identified. And this video that I did a while back, the 4 stories have to do with the Matrix, Plato's cave, the 5 percenters, and then there's a really interesting allegory called Our Ship. And in every one of those, they talk about these 3 pieces to the story. And please go watch that video, and I think you really will like it. It'll make this video make more sense. But the key here is the first 2 of these pieces to these stories, have to do with 2 forms of ignorance where we don't know we don't know. There's knowledge that we're missing. We got false knowledge in its place. And then there's the number 1 source for false knowledge. Now, this is why there are many levels in Plato's cave. A lot of people find piece number 3. They've gone up a level in Plato's cave, and they go, hey, there's a fox guarding the hen house. Hey, there are wolves guarding the foxes. Hey, you guys are sheep. Wake up, wake up. You got piece number 2, false knowledge. You don't know the earth is flat. You don't know there are reptiles ruling the world. You don't know there are globalists who are running everything. Wake up. If you just woke up, we could solve the problems. If you just admitted that the earth is flat, you'd have to admit that in creation and that God exists, and if we worship God instead, we wouldn't worship money. I love studying everybody who thinks they have a solution. That's what I've been doing for 26 years. It's been a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed it. I love looking at what other people think is a solution, especially now that I've identified all the pieces, so I can go, oh, they're talking about piece 7.2. Oh, they're talking about piece number 3. Do they have the right piece of the puzzle? No, they're distracted. That's why I say over and over in my videos, and a lot of you people who recently found my channel by watching my Flat Earth video and haven't watched any of my other videos, you don't know that all of my other videos I say the same thing over and over and over. Either we're getting reconnected or we're getting distracted. Either we're finding piece number one, and that has to do with the fall of mankind, where we correct that mistake, and that's all that matters, or we're getting distracted. Everything else, distracted. Everything else is a distraction. Now, I've never said ever in my other videos that we should ignore that, because we have to do downstream work. But it doesn't matter who's doing what. We just got to correct what they've done. Now, if the earth is really flat, can we correct that? No. Does it solve any problems? Well, it helps us understand we can't trust our belief system. Well, I like that idea. But does it solve any problems? The key about any revolution is we don't want to put too much attention on piece number 3. And I explained that in my other videos. I labeled that as piece number 8.8. In my special teaching tool, I did an 11-part video series called The Ultimate Solution. I'll put a link down below that takes you to that section where I talk about 8 ways we use the wrong approach, and this is the 8th one. And this is where we put too much attention on piece number 3, thinking it's a solution. That's why it's a distraction. We can't ignore piece number 3, but we also don't want to believe in anything that takes away our responsibility too. Now, why do people believe in the flat earth? What's the ultimate goal there? I haven't studied this enough to know what everyone believes, and I watched one little video today, and that was this guy's conclusion, that if indeed the earth is flat, then that proves creation, and therefore, and that's what he said in his little description. God can't serve two masters. It's either God or money. You know, the bankers, you know, they want us to believe the earth is round, so we don't believe in God. Having a belief in God is not our solution, my friends. That doesn't solve anything. Oh, if we believe in God, we wouldn't be acting up. Would you not have cancer? Or how many people do you know who believe in God are dying all around you and are suffering? They're in pain. That's what George Malcolm said when he finally figured out what to do and went to a raw food diet. As a Baptist minister for 25 years, he said 90% of the people coming to me for help were suffering. I didn't have any knowledge for that because I didn't know about the body. This is the most important knowledge we need, and that's why I say over and over and over, it's a distraction. Yes, we have to do downstream work. Does believing the earth is flat do any downstream work? I don't see it. Are we being manipulated? Oh, I heard one comment saying, wait a minute, NASA, they're just siphoning off a bunch of money. They're taking our money away from us. This isn't about money. The only way this could be about money is to keep us from not having it. Because the people who have it all already have more than they ever need. And again, it's if you don't have all the pieces of the puzzle, especially if you don't have that number one piece, you really don't understand what the actual solution is. Now, if you do understand that we got to get reconnected, but you still believe in flat earth, I'm going to bet my money that you're probably a firm believer in God, and you think this proves your beliefs, and boy, I'm going to embrace it because I've been wanting to prove that this is, this backs up everything I believe. And again, I'm only guessing, but the point here is, does it really solve a problem? And I know a lot of people do. I have really good friends that insist, oh, this is just a short time, it's the hereafter. Don't believe in the afterlife con, man. That's the biggest con ever sold to anybody. To forget what we're doing here, because it doesn't matter. It's just a little drop in the bucket. The after is so much bigger. Hey, you're here now, buddy. Pay attention to what you're doing. Don't be tricked and deceived. So there are a lot of things that are distractions. And we do have to work downstream and undo the things these people have done. But I've said this 1,000 times. I don't care if it's the white people doing it. I don't care if it's the Zionists that are doing it. I don't care if it's the aliens that are doing it. We got to stop doing it. Stop doing it. And it's so hard to do. It's the reason why I added a preliminary step to this. That's the solid food vacation. If you haven't done this yet, go down below and check out my video in the description box on taking the first step. Watch the Dr. Roba interview and get motivated. He's on day 21. Watch the Deborah Duncan show. You see 6 people doing this. Read the comments down below. Look what's happening to people. This is the solution. If we don't understand how important it is for us to collectively get reconnected, everything's a distraction. If we don't reach the tipping point, everything's a distraction. If we don't change our mentality, everything's a distraction. Flat earth does not change our mentality. It doesn't get rid of cancer or heart disease or diabetes. It's not the solution to war. Oh yes it is, John. The globalists, they finance both sides, but they're a reflection of us. If you believe in aliens, that's taking away our responsibility. We are the enemy. Not the bankers, they're a reflection of us. Don't focus on who's controlling us. Play your role, man. Get reconnected. That's why we're suffering. Collectively, we're a bunch of shit. We've got a bunch of crap in us, that's a serpent, and then our biophotons are too low. That's why we suffer. If we don't focus on correcting the fall of mankind and those 5 main mistakes, everything we do is a distraction. Everything we do is a distraction. Case closed. Oh, you're not open-minded. Yeah, I am. I love studying other people who believe certain things and punch holes in it. I already found holes in these guys' theories already. Punch some holes in it. Well, I'm not going to look. I don't care about whether the earth is flat or not, but I'll punch some holes in why people think it's flat. People think, oh, it's all about the money. Well, what is money? I've identified that in 2 places on my ultimate schematic. It's piece 34 in the plus 8 box of knowledge. It's one of our subsequent needs. There's 10 subsequent needs because we're disconnected, because we have the wrong mentality, because of the fall of mankind. And one of them is our subsequent need for money. So that is a problem in knowledge. So if piece 34.2 comes down, is up in the plus 8 box, and then if you look at my schematic, there's a doorway in between where we have the knowledge we need, and the false knowledge right here is where we're at. Now there are obstacles in that doorway, and this is one of the obstacles, 7.2. There are a total of 40 obstacles altogether, because there are pieces within pieces. There's 21 main problems of knowledge. The main problem of knowledge is up in the plus 8 box of knowledge, the knowledge we don't have. Then we have false knowledge in its place, and then there are 19 obstacles or 19 reasons why we don't know. But then within that, we have 21 pieces within pieces. So there's actually 40 pieces altogether. And one of those pieces within pieces is 7.2, our subsequent need for money. But also in that doorway, we also have piece number 3, the number one source of false knowledge. And you don't want to focus too much attention on that, but we have to appreciate what it's done to us so we can reverse what they've done. The solution is not to go, hey everybody, you don't know about piece number 3, you don't know the earth is flat. That's not a solution, it doesn't solve anything. The solution is, got to go upstream, find the knowledge we need, get reconnected, and then end up in paradise instead of down here where we got all these problems. Now, if we focus too much attention on piece number 3, and you think that's the solution, it doesn't get us up into finding the knowledge we need. That's the key. We don't have the knowledge we need. Knowledge of how to live is the most important thing we need to know. Whether or not we live on a flat earth or a round earth is not of any significance to those unless they want to try to prove it's a way we're being manipulated. And I like that. I like showing that. And remember, it's good to study people who think they have a solution. This is how we learn. This is part of the hero's journey. There are 5 phases or 5 steps on the hero's journey. The third step, the third phase, is to find like minds, gather allies, and gather data. And this is part of the data we need to understand. We need to know a lot about piece number 3. It's not a distraction to spend 10, 20 or so hours studying the flat earth. I like doing that. It's a great idea. That's how I've learned so much, is I study everybody and see if they have a point of view I haven't used yet. But what I found at this point, I've identified, I think, all the pieces. I'm not seeing any new pieces at me. All I see is people having parts of the pieces and not having piece number 1. If you don't have piece number 1, it's a distraction. Doesn't mean we don't want to know about piece number 3 and undo what they've done, but saying they're Zionists or they're white people or they're aliens or whatever, they're banksters, it doesn't do any good. That's part of the distraction. You see? There's so many layers to this onion, who cares? That's what the key is. Who cares? The only thing that matters now is for all of us to play our role so we can become the best that we can be. Then once we do that, we'll have answers to all of this. There won't be any debate. Won't be any doubt. As long as we're sick, this world's a joke. Another video you got to watch is The Meaning of Life. Watch that video I uploaded. There's only one meaning in life right now on this planet, and that's to get the hell out of Plato's cave. But there are many levels of Plato's cave. A lot of you guys have just gone up a level and you're not out of the cave yet. And you think, oh, you stupid fools down there, you cave dwellers, you bottom ground cave dwellers, I'm up on this level, I'm out of the cave. You're not out of the cave. There's more to go. You got to do a solid food vacation. You got to get reconnected. You got to flush out that serpent. You got to bump up those biophotons. That's going to make you help you feel connected. People say, John, you should get a bunch of people together and have them and report the results. They're doing it already, man. Read my channel. Go to all my other videos. People are uploading. I'm on day 21. Every day's better and better and better and better. This is exciting. You got to do it. You don't believe me? Listen to Dr. Roba. He was on fire, man. You got to listen to Dr. Roba interviewed by these 2 women on day 21. Medical miracle. He now knows The systems we have are not the answers. We are the answer. That's why this is the hero's journey. Most of our problems are self-inflicted. Whether the earth is flat or round is of no consequence. Don't get distracted unless you just want to say, well, let me learn as much as I can about physics and this and that and that. That's interesting, yeah. And what are you going to find? The more you know you don't know. Right? That's the Socratic irony. The bigger that circle gets inside our box of knowledge, the more we know we don't know. And that's when, if you finally get big enough, you realize, my God, I've been going down too many rabbit holes. Now, a lot of rabbit holes, again, they're worth going down. In peacetime, this is a war, damn it. People are suffering right now. Your energy doesn't need to go about flat earth. You need to do this first. You got to put all your energy in going upstream and getting this message out. That's the only thing that's important. Everything else is a distraction. But remember, once you're on the hero's journey, you got to gather information. And part of that's putting a lot of information from a lot of different sources. And that includes even something like the flat earth. Not a problem. But if you can't prove it, what good does it do? That's why it doesn't provide anything. Plus, what's the outcome of it? I don't get it. So I'm sure I'll get more comments on people saying, this is why it's important. But if you don't understand what I'm saying about getting reconnected, I might as well be talking to a rock. Seriously, man. If you haven't done what I've said, you don't know what I'm talking about. And you'll continue to get distracted. So it's time to get excited, my friends. It's time to do something many of y'all haven't done yet. And that's a solid food vacation. Why? You know. You're in for a treat. Hello, my name is John Rose. And in this video, I'd like to take a closer look at what we're supposed to do once we get out of Plato's cave. Well, the answer is obvious. Anyone who comes out of Plato's cave and understands what's going on and has family and friends back in the cave, the only thing to do is to go back into the cave and help everyone else come out of the cave. And that means we continue on the hero's journey and we share this message. Keep it in mind when you go back down into Plato's cave and you try to get people to look into the mirror or look into the fire behind them to become enlightened. They scream at you and yell at you and say, what are you doing to me? You're hurting my eyes. It hurts for me to look into the fire. It hurts to admit that I'm my own enemy. What's wrong with you? So when you go back down into Plato's cave, it's very disheartening because most people think you're crazy. Why would you want to look into the fire? Because it's how we get out of this cave of ignorance. And as long as the vast majority of us are in this cave, there's nothing else for us to do but to spend our life helping people escape Plato's cave. That's the only meaning in life. Meaning in life depends upon where we are. And right now we're in a cave of ignorance where people are suffering needlessly. There's a simple solution to solve these problems. Most people don't have the knowledge. That's why it's a cave of ignorance. That's why we got to keep going back down and find those who have the ears to hear. That's the first stage on the hero's journey. The first stage to get out of Plato's cave is you have the ears to hear. The second stage on the hero's journey is, do you test an idea as time has come? Do you prove to yourself that what we're saying is true? Come out of the cave so you can see what's going on. And then remember, just getting out of the cave is only half of it. Once we get out of the cave, then we got to go on to paradise. Meaning that we got to make these five main corrections permanent. Remember, a solid food vacation corrects 5 main mistakes on a temporary basis, just so we can see what we're missing. So once we come out of the cave, we want to continue on toward paradise, which is simply a place where we don't have problems within our control. And how do we do that? We satisfy all of our needs. And when we look at the ways we're not doing that, the biggest ones has to do with our food, our diet. That's why a solid food vacation addresses those big 5 main mistakes and helps us get out of this cave of ignorance. So it's like there's 2 maps in one, if you look at my special teaching tool. The bottom part is to help us get out of Plato's cave, find the knowledge we need and apply it. End up in paradise, where you don't have problems that are within your control. And then once you do that, you keep going back down into Plato's cave. And you help people find their way out of the cave. You give them the instructions they need, which is simply a solid food vacation so they can see what they're missing. Get a glimpse of what it looks like outside the cave. So yes, what do we do once we come out of the cave? It's what everyone does. You go back down into the cave and you help as many people get out of the cave, because as long as anyone's in the cave, we'll all suffer. No man is an island. The individual cannot escape the collective. You cannot escape Plato's cave as long as the vast majority of people are in it. So once you come out, what do? You stay on the hero's journey. You keep trying to help people wake up to this, and we go for the tipping point. So once you come out of Plato's cave, what you do as a trim tab is you play your role and get us to the tipping point. Because things will never change unless we reach the tipping point. So pretty much everything we do is a waste of time unless we can finally get enough of us to get everyone's attention. So that's the goal for trim tabs, is to help us reach the tipping point. There are 3 waves of heroes on the hero's journey. The first wave are the trim tabs. We're the rudder on the rudder trying to steer our ship away from this iceberg. The tipping point itself will be the rudder. So the trim tabs are the rudder on the rudder. This is where we're going to get the tipping point. Once we reach the tipping point, then we can change the rudder itself. That will be the second wave of heroes. That's when everyone else jumps on board. The third wave of heroes will be when everyone else completes the connection. And they're going to want to do that at that point, and we'll make it very easy for it to happen. But in the beginning, you guys are the trim tabs. Our job is to help us reach the tipping point, because things will never change unless we reach the tipping point. So once we come out of the cave, go back down day after day, spread this knowledge, tell people that God, I have got hundreds, it seems like, mosquito hawks all over me right now. But we gotta get excited about this and be as tenacious as these little guys are. If you could see how many little things are tickling me all over right now, you'd be amazed. Quite a distraction. And there are going to be distractions on the hero's journey. My God, there's so many out here. But don't let that bring you down. Remember, it's not easy to go back down and Plato's cave. It's not easy to tell people they got to take this red pill. They got to stop making mistakes. They got to be the best that they can be. People don't want to do that. It's scary. Fear is a big motivator. But we can overcome that fear simply by testing that idea as time is coming. You know, my friends, what happens when we do that. We're in for a treat. Do you have what it takes to be a great leader? Are you a philosopher king? Hello, my name is John Rose. Today is June 16th, 2018. One day away from my 64th birthday tomorrow, and it's forecasted to rain, so this may be my birthday salute to everybody. And I already have several videos in the hopper. This will be ready by Wednesday. I've got that many ahead of me that need to come before them. As many of y'all know, one of my favorite stories, one of my favorite allegories, is that of Plato's cave. Excuse me. One of my favorite videos I did was Escaping the Matrix of Evil, where I explained 4 different allegories, Plato's cave being one of them, and showing how they all use the 3 most important pieces to my puzzle. And I like Plato's cave for many reasons, because it really does illustrate what we're going through now. And if we base things on what Plato would say, is that the only people who are qualified to be our leaders are those who come out of the cave. It only makes sense, right? That's why I've said before in my other videos that if I was a philosopher king on this planet, there'd only be one law, that everyone had to have a minimal biophoton level, and then all of the criminals and all of our politicians had to have a maximum biophoton level. If you're still not behaving properly and you got enough biophotons in you, you don't have a serpent in you, then we got to make sure those levels are as high as you can get. And of course, the reason why all politicians had to have a maximum biophoton level, because you can't get it unless you come out of Plato's cave. So what do we've got now on this planet? Are there any great leaders anywhere that are out of Plato's cave? Now, there are many layers in Plato's cave, and what we see now are people who are doing something about some of those layers, and they're criticized because they don't have the other layers. At this point, I guess we got to count our blessings to a degree for some of us, depending on who we have as our leaders. And we're always going to struggle until we have a philosopher king become our leader. And when that day happens, this person will be a great educator. They'll understand why we get sick. They'll have the solution to our problems. They'll help us reach the tipping point. And when that day occurs, we won't need any more leaders. The mob can rule at that point and won't be a problem. We won't need a government. I've said before in Satan's secret weapon that our government is a subsequent need because we're sick and we're disconnected. The fall of mankind allowed us to eat things we shouldn't eat. Now we got a serpent in our belly. It destroyed the nutrient that feeds our senses, our sixth sense. Now we are lacking one of our senses. And that's the problem that we face. So the only person who can lead us out of the mess we're in are those who've gotten out of that cave, that they understand the importance of the fall of mankind. Those are going to be our only true philosopher kings. And until then, most people that are our leaders don't know are addressing any of those other levels in Plato's cave. So one of the main levels people find in Plato's cave is they go up a level and they go, look what I found. Got a fox guard and a hen house. Well, wait a minute. There's some wolves guarding the foxes. How many layers are there? Who's behind the curtain? How many layers are there in this onion? How do we know when we're not being played? Now this is important to understand because the powers that be beta test us all the time for the simple reason that we are the Goliath in this equation. Optimistic, too optimistic. Poppycock. If you don't understand the power we possess, if we can just wake up, you don't understand what the powers that be understand. That's why they're always beta testing us. And you never know when something might be a ruse just to pacify us so we will lose our momentum and our steam. Again, it's not always easy to figure out what certain people are doing if they're going to be trying to address certain levels in Plato's cave. It's real difficult to evaluate things. So, all we can do if we want to get out of this cave of ignorance is play our role on the hero's journey. Keep spreading this powerful message that we are the Goliath once we wake up, and that won't happen unless we reach the tipping point. That's why it's so important that we understand that we play this significant role in this whole equation. I've mentioned many times, we make mistakes. We become damaged. Now we have a whole group of needs we shouldn't have to worry about, but we do. And that can change if we realize the role that we play collectively. Individual problems are a piece of cake for most of us, because most of those problems are self-inflicted, and that makes us the hero when we do something about it and change what we do. But lots of our problems are on a collective level. And they're only going to work when we reach the tipping point so we can all change our collective mentality. It's our collective shadow that keeps us where we are. It's that collective mentality that keeps us where we are. And there's only one way to change our mentality. It's to change the condition of all four of our current status factors. And that's where these two groups of needs come into play, realizing that that other group of needs should not exist and only exist because we're making mistakes. So there will come a day when we wake up to that reality. There will come a day when we stop making those mistakes and we won't have those other subsequent needs. And when that day happens, you know, we're all in for a treat.